Good evening and welcome to the Bhagavatam. Today we continue with the Uddhava Gita, Canto 11, Chapter 18. In the previous chapter, number 17, Krishna had been describing the Varnashram system, specifically the activities and duties of the four Varnas. As you'll see here, with the Brahmins or priests, the Kshatriyas, the rulers, politicians, warriors like that, the Vaishyas or merchants, Shudras or workers. So this would be like the Brahmins. And the Brahmins, their job was to cultivate peacefulness, self-control, austerity, cleanliness, satisfaction, tolerance. We'd gone over this, but I'm just kind of doing a recap for you today. And then they also had to work on cultivating simplicity, straightforwardness, devotion, mercy, truthfulness. So one knew a Brahmin not by their birth, but by their qualities. That was the whole principle that Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita, that the caste system, the Varnashram system, is not something by birth. It is by a person's guna and karma, their aptitude and their activities, which is pretty much how we do it today as well. You know, we give a person a job based on their aptitude. Do they have the aptitude for this job? And are they actually doing the work? They might have the intelligence, they might have the aptitude, but they're not willing to do anything about it. So, well, that doesn't count. So similarly, in the ancient Vedic time, it is a very clear-cut system of society. And there were the Kshatriyas or warriors. And they were also the persons who were engaged in political stuff, you know, dealing with the power and government, stuff like that. Now, they had to have bodily strength, they had to have determination, heroism, tolerance, as well as generosity, really work hard for the people, steadiness, leadership, devotion, also to the Brahmins and to the people as well. And they were the Vaishyas. These were the business people, or the ones who took care of agriculture as well. And they had to have faith in Vedic civilization and dedication to charity, freedom from hypocrisy, service to the Brahmins, desire to accumulate money. See, everyone took care of the Brahmins. They were the priests. And so they were also the ones who spread the knowledge. They gave everyone education. And they also, whatever charities they received, they would distribute them out further. So everyone took care of them, and they were taken care of by everyone, you know, and they took care of everyone, sorry. And then there were the Shudras. The Shudras were the laborers or workers. And that could be physical menial work, but in today's time, that could be blue-collar workers as well. And their main thing was to serve without duplicity and to give complete satisfaction to whoever they were serving. So these were the basic four varnas, they've been called. And all parts of society were supposed to do the following things. They were supposed to practice nonviolence, truthfulness, honesty, happiness, and welfare of all. Right? It's a pretty decent list. And also be free from lust, anger, and greed. So yeah, if you think you could do that, then you'd be part of the Varnashram society. Be nonviolent, be truthful, be honest, be happy, and take care of the welfare of make sure everybody else is happy as well. And then, of course, be free from lust, anger, and greed. Lust meaning desire, the broad sense. So with that, now we're going deeper into the ashrams. So those were the varnas, varnashrams. So varnas were these four, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Now we're coming to the four ashrams, and last time was also, they talked about some of that, the brahmachari especially, which is the student life, and the grihastha, which is the householder. We'll be talking a little bit more about them, but not so much. Our focus today will be on the Vanaprastha, the one who is moving away from their household life and practicing renunciation, and the sannyasi, or who is completely renounced from the material aspects of life. So Krishna is now speaking to his friend Uddhava, and he describes that after householder life, one should take to the Vanaprastha ashram. So meaning, the way it was divided up was this. If you lived a life of 100 years, Then the first 25, you were a student, a brahmachari. You went to the house of the guru, you learned from the guru, who normally didn't live in the city, lived out in the countryside a bit. So you were sort of in a boarding school situation. The guru then took care of you, fed you, clothed you, and his wife, of course, was there. And together they took care of the students. They also taught them the Vedic culture, and they taught them the ways of Sanatan Dharma. They taught them spirituality. They taught them meditation. They taught them how to live a simple life, how to control their mind, how to control their senses. So many important things that we don't get taught in modern day time as we grow up. And then at around 25, they'd come and get married and have children and so on and so forth, have a family. Varnashram system, the Vedic culture, was not about dating. It was not about indiscriminate sexual activities. It was about restricting sensual pleasures and focusing one's mind on the higher purpose of life, which is to be able to liberate oneself from the cycle of birth and death, from the material existence, and go to the spiritual world. So with that goal and purpose in mind, everything was very regulated for that purpose. Then after one came to around the age of 50, kids were grown up. Kids might be 20, 25 years old. They're able to take care of the household. They're able to manage things on their own. At that point, one went into what is called the Vanaprastha. Vana actually means forest, and Prastha is one who goes to live in the forest. So they go to the forest or a holy place, and that was the idea of the Vanaprastha ashram. And the husband would go, but the wife may also accompany him, or she may stay behind with grown sons, because the way Vanaprastha was practiced back then was kind of difficult. And I could imagine that most people, including myself today, and I'm sure most of us, couldn't do it the way it was done back then, thousands of years ago, when this was being spoken by Krishna. So I'm going to share with you what the way it was, and then we'll talk about the way it needs to be in today's time. So Vanaprastha would then be in the forest, and they would eat by just whatever was in the forest, like, bulbs, roots, fruits, etc. Sometimes they could even cook grains. It wasn't so completely rigid. They would wear not your usual clothes, but just tree bark, grass, leaves, animal skins. There would be no grooming of hair on the head or face or body. There would be no special endeavor for dental hygiene. They would just bathe in water 3 times daily and sleep on the ground. Wow. So is that something you want to do? Because I think that for most of us, this kind of life would be extremely difficult. Living in the forest, well, there's all kinds of bugs, and there's all, the weather is unpredictable, and you're living in maybe a little hut somewhere. Yeah. No grooming of any kind, just, and living on just whatever is found in the forest, fruits and bulbs and roots. And I wouldn't even know how to live like that. We're so removed from this kind of life, but this is how seriously they took their spirituality. Spirituality was not for them about, going on ayahuasca journeys or whatever else people are doing today. It wasn't about, going to some dance practice, and that wasn't spirituality. I'm sorry. Nor was it tantra, nor was it any of these other things, nor was it manifestation. No, it was very serious business. There was a science to it. But a key thing behind that science was the practice of penance and austerity. That meant doing difficult things to be able to control the mind, to be able to control the senses, and to prepare oneself for the journey of moksha, of liberation. When you hear about even someone like Buddha, do you think that he got his nirvana, his liberation, just by sitting at home in his palace? No, he left his palace, he left everything. And he went into the forest, and in that forest he performed many different kinds of meditations and austerities until finally he hit that spot of where he attained nirvana. So it's not something, easy. Of course, there are simpler methods in today's time, but as I said, we'll come to that in a bit. So, So now we come to the penance part. Let's see what they used to do for that. The idea here was extreme. During the summer, they would actually make fire on all four sides and sit under the blazing sun, and definitely no air conditioning or anything like that. They would make it super hot. The idea was to learn how to tolerate heat. And then in the rain, they would remain outside under torrents of rain. You don't know what rain is like until you've been in the monsoons. And in winter, they would submerge in water to one's neck. That's extreme, isn't it? And they'd collect food for the day, but not the future. Meaning, just whatever one could eat in the day. That's it. Right? So on one hand, you've got all this stuff regarding temperature, the hot heat, the cold, learning how to tolerate that. Krishna says, happiness and distress are like winter and summer seasons. And one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. In our time today, we are so intolerant of the weather. If it's hot, we want an air conditioner, we want a fan. But he's saying, no, tolerate the heat, tolerate the cold. When it's cold, we need a nice down jacket or some really warm jacket that'll keep the cold away. When it's raining, we want a nice raincoat and nothing should get wet. But here they're doing something entirely different, completely exposing themselves to the elements. And then when it comes to eating, no restaurants, no cooking, no fancy stuff, just collecting food for the day from the forest, but not keeping any for the future, not even for tomorrow, and accepting only the bare minimum necessities of life. All right? What else did they do? What were their activities? They performed sacrifices during the day. There were many sacrifices such as the Agnihotra, the Darsha, Purnamasa, and Chaturmasya. Now, again, we're not practicing these kind of things in today's time. In fact, in today's time, the practice that has been recommended is not this kind of austerity, but rather the chanting of the names of God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I think that just that, makes everything a whole lot simpler. Yes, of course, one does it for a couple of hours every day. And even that people think is a lot. Oh my gosh, how do you do that? But how about the option? Would you like to do this kind of austerities? This is what they did during the ancient Vedic time. And this was to purify oneself. This was to purify one's mind, because mind is full of desire, because mind is full of vasana, right? Desire and lust, kama. And so to purify that mind and to make oneself deeply focused on the divine, on God, it takes work. It's not easy. People think, oh no, I'll just go to the temple, I'll go to the church, I'll go to the mosque, I'll just do a little prayer here and there, a few minutes, go on Sunday, go whenever. And, well, I'm saved. No, sorry. You're saved when you're saved now. It's not about being saved somewhere in some future time. I don't know. That may happen, may not happen. But what I do know is that if you've become free of your mind and your senses and your desires, then you're saved now, here. It takes some work, but it can be done. And in any case, age comes to help us. We've got realization as we get older that all this stuff never quite worked for me. All these things in life didn't quite give me the pleasures I wanted. All of this really didn't amount to anything. Ultimately, I'm getting older. Ultimately, I will die. Ultimately, I will leave it all behind, and all the pleasures that I could have had will be forgotten. You may say, oh, well, we're here to have experiences. You're right. You think God created this world for experiences. That's the Disneyland version of reality. That God created this Disneyland for us to have experiences out here. If it was to have experiences, then why are there experiences like death? Experiences like old age? Experiences like disease? That's not a nice experience. That's not a Disneyland. That's not a fun thing. So the idea that people have is, well, let me just have as much fun as I can while I can. It's not the point of life. The point of life is to realize that this is an illusion, this is Maya, and that we need to come out of it. So that requires a certain process. And so the Vanaprastha would engage in that process, performing sacrifices, doing things that were difficult. They would then perform oblations in the fire of rice and grain or grain cakes. They would, but never animal sacrifices, of course. And so in the text, the actual text, it says, one who engages in sense gratification must perform severe penances at the end of life to counteract his sinful hedonistic activities. See, the whole idea of this is, I've spent my life enjoying my senses, engaging in hedonistic activities, trying to have a good time, trying to have a blast, as they say. But now I realize it was all nonsense. And so I need to perform some penances to show my sincerity, to show that I do want to go on a different path. And just as anything takes work, you want to start a new business, you want to get into a new job, you want to get into a relationship, it takes work. Anyone who tells you that it doesn't take work is fooling you, making an idiot out of you. To think that you can get into a new job and you'll just know how to do it right away, even though you've never done that thing before. To get into a business and to think it'll just happen. To get into a relationship and think, oh yeah, it's just going to be, honeymoon. It's going to be beautiful. We're going to be in love and we're going to have a wonderful time. We're going to live happily ever after. Ooh, yes. No, it doesn't quite work like that. It takes work. It takes work building anything. And so it is with your spiritual life. So therefore, it says in the purport here, devotee of God or the Supreme Lord, however, naturally develops Krishna consciousness and need not subject himself to such radical penances. It is stated in the Pancharatra, Aradhito yadi haris tapaha kim. If one is worshipping the Supreme Lord properly, what is the use of severe penances? See, those penances are meant to bring you to the point where you begin to devote your life to God. Then it says, Naradhito yadi hari tapaha kim. And if one is not properly worshipping the Supreme Lord, then also what is the use of severe penances? Antar bahir yadi haris tapasa tataha kim. Nirantara bhir. If Sri Krishna is realized within yourself and everywhere without, then everything that exists, what is the use of severe penances? So if you realize that Krishna is within me, Supreme Lord God is within me, and He's everywhere as well, then what is the use of all these penances? Yad harish tapasa tataha kim. And if Sri Krishna is not seen within and without everything, then what is the use of severe penances? So this is a different take than what Krishna is saying here. Krishna is describing the regular varnashram system, the Vanaprastha, as it was practiced back then. So he's telling this to his friend Uddhava. Of course, Uddhava knows all these things. It's not any of this is new to him, but he's saying it for the benefit of all of us who will come thousands of years later and who need to know what is the standard and why. Then Krishna continues, one who executes this painful but exalted penance which awards ultimate liberation simply to achieve insignificant sense gratification must be considered the greatest fool. So if you're going to do all of these penances only for the purpose that, I want to enjoy my senses, then that is very foolish, right? Because the purpose of doing all these is to get ultimate liberation. That is called moksha, of which there are two kinds. One is to merge into the light, as many people want to do, or to become a devotee of God and to live with Him eternally. So in the purport it is said, one who consciously performs this process for such promotion to heaven is certainly the greatest fool. Now, most people in most religions want to be promoted to heaven. They want a better standard of life. Hey, they want that. We want that when we are alive in this world. We want a better standard of life. Somehow we're working hard to have a better standard of life. And then when we die, we want to have promotion to heaven. And so we go on Sunday or whichever day we go, Friday, Sunday, whatever the day is, and we then pray so that we may go to heaven. But here it is being said, this idea that I will enjoy myself better in that heaven is for fools. It is a fool's paradise. The idea is not that I will now go from this level of enjoyment to a greater level of enjoyment, but that I will go from the foolishness of trying to enjoy and understand that the supreme enjoyer is God, who is the creator. And he who created everything created it for his enjoyment. And we exist to be enjoyed by him, which means that we exist to serve him. And that is the actual position of this living entity, is to be able to engage in the Supreme Lord's service. So continues in the purport, the Supreme Lord does not want this process to be abused or exploited by materialistic persons, for the ultimate goal of life is love of God. Krishna continues, if the Vanaprastha, so one who is engaging in Vanaprastha ashram, if the Vanaprastha is this person who is now in the forest, is overtaken by old age, and because of this trembling body is no longer able to execute his prescribed duties, he should place the sacrificial fire within his heart by meditation. Then fixing his mind on me, he should enter into the fire and give up his body. Wow. Oh my gosh. Literally just walk into the fire. So in the purport it is explained, although this may not be possible in the modern age, we can appreciate the absolute seriousness of giving up sense gratification and going back home, back to the spiritual world, back to Godhead. Okay, so what is the point in any case of doing all this stuff? And so is explained here, the actual purpose is not to try to go to some heavenly planet, but rather it explains that if you did all of this, you will go to what is called Maharlok or Rishi Lok, the place where all the rishis, all the saintly people go. And then over there, you will develop your spiritual life even further and then directly achieve me, Krishna says. Means directly you will come to the spiritual world. So Maharlok is one of the heavenly planets, but that's higher than even most of the others. It is a place of tapasya. It is a place of spiritual austerity. It is a place of spiritual growth. So one achieves Maharloka or Rishi Lok through strict observance of positive and negative regulations. So you're following all these rules and regulations. However, without developing a taste for chanting and hearing the glories of the Supreme Lord, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, it is not possible to achieve the perfect liberation of going back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, on the Maharlok planet, the unsuccessful sage gives more attention to hearing and chanting, and thus he gradually develops pure love of God. So what is this idea of pure love of God? Pure means unmotivated. No selfish desire. I'm not looking for, oh, I want to be with God because I will then enjoy better. Oh, I will have mansions where I will live. Oh, I will have all kinds of lovely women that I can play with. No, that is selfishness. That is greed. That is not the way of God. Right? The pure love of God is where you forsake everything, including yourself, including your senses, including your pleasure, including your enjoyment, and say, I love you. Just as when you get into a relationship with someone, you forsake all other partners. You forsake all other men or women or whatever you're into, right? And you say, I love you. I forsake all else for you. If we do this in our relationships, then why is it so hard to understand that we would do this with God? Right? I forsake my past. I forsake my future. I forsake all that I could have been so that I can be with you. Now, that might mean I take a setback. That might mean that it's a burden on my life. I may have to adjust or adapt to the person that I love and want to be with. So be it. That's what comes with being in a relationship. And so it is in that relationship with God. It's not just that He wants you to serve Him and He's some big Lord sitting in, on the chair out there trying to control everyone and get them and boss over them. No. Because Krishna says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajami aham. To that degree that one surrenders unto me, to the degree that you devote yourself to me, I devote myself to you. I surrender to you. I take care of you. I reciprocate accordingly. You see, that's the beauty. He reciprocates with us, with our love, with our devotion, with our surrender. And that means that He's with us, taking care of us. It's not that we're alone. It's not that we've got to do this journey of life by ourselves. Then in the next verse, Krishna says, if the Vanaprastha understands, now here's the if that person understands that even promotion to the highest planet in the material world, Brahmaloka, the most evolved heavenly planet, is a miserable situation, then such a person develops complete detachment from all possible results of karmic activities and may take to the sannyas ashram. So remember, we're talking about 4 different ashrams, 4 different stages of life. The brahmachari was the student life. The grihastha is the household life. The vanaprastha is the sort of interim stage where you're beginning to get detached, you're beginning to leave home. So typically in today's time, it would mean you'd start going and visiting holy places. You'd start going in places away from your home. You'd leave the home in the care of your children, or your grown-up sons if you have, or whatever. You just start leaving home, start simplifying your life. If you have no one, then you just go and start traveling and going to places where you can listen to highly evolved persons, saintly persons, and absorb yourself and get away from your job and your work and everything else that you did in life and start devoting more and more and more time to your spiritual growth. That is what it means to get into the Vanaprastha in today's time, right? These austerities may not be our cup of tea today, but yes, what we can do is we can simplify our life, we can give up our attachment to things, and we can begin the journey of being able to travel to various holy places, listen to various saintly persons, and gradually uplift our consciousness. So now comes the next stage. So the sannyas process, sannyasi, when you become totally detached from material life, that is to say, let's say you've gone to the Vanaprastha stage, maybe husband and wife have gone together, they've been traveling, they've been going through all of that, and then finally there comes the last stage of life when you're 75. The idea is not to just be at home and keep staying in the comfort of your household and just keep enjoying till your last days. No, the final stage is the stage of sannyas, where you give up everything you own, right? And you then devote yourself 100% to God. So the way it is described here is that you worship Krishna according to the scripture, you give all your property to the Brahmins, they in turn distribute it to other people, and you become free from all material desire, except especially when it comes to the opposite sex, or money, or reputation, all of that. Become free and vigilantly keep one's heart clean, free of envy, discrimination, anger, etc. So it's very easy when you even a person who becomes a sannyasi, even though they might give up everything, they might give up all their worldly possessions, they might give up all their attachments externally, but in the mind it still remains, then it won't work. They have to actually give up the idea of trying to own or control or enjoy anything. And keep one's heart clean, meaning be free of envy. Discrimination means see everyone the same, no discrimination. Whether that person is a man or a woman or a child or black or white or this color, or, no, see everyone as the same. All creatures, all beings as the same. And, if you start not cultivating those qualities, then just physically leaving everything won't do anything. For example, a person may think, as it says in the next verse, this man taking sannyas is going to surpass us and go back home, back to Godhead. So some of the devas may think like that. So thus thinking, the devas, the demigods, create stumbling blocks on the path of the sannyasi, the person who's taken sannyas, by appearing before him in the shape of his former wife or other women and attractive objects. But the sannyasi should pay the demigods and their manifestations no heed. So it's been talked about how great sages had apsaras, beautiful heavenly women, come to them, sometimes in the middle of the night, and try to seduce them and try to get them to give up their austerities, give up their practices and penances and so on and so forth, so that they would then, get deviated. So these kind of tests do happen. They could happen in dreams, they could happen in reality. There's all kinds of tests that happen. Are you truly sincere to your path? Are you truly willing to understand that none of the world is not where it's at? Now, the clothing of the sannyasi, you see, they wear literally, in the typical sense, in the old-fashioned traditional sense, they wore what is called a kaupin, which is really similar to like a thong, if you think of that. That's just about it. Or they might just wear that. That is sort of the two pieces of cloth really tied together, not some fancy thing from some high-end store. No, just two pieces of cloth tied together. Or they may wear a simple cloth around their waist. Of course, they may also wear proper outfit. That's okay too. That's not what's important. Then they have a danda or a stick and a water pot. The Vaishnav sannyasis use what is called a tridandi, that is to say, 3 bamboo rods fixed together, signifying dedication of the body, mind, and words to the service of the Supreme Lord. The control of prana, life air, through pranayam is meant to control the mind. And one who always thinks of service to Krishna has certainly achieved the perfection of pranayam. So one should be careful to not step, so sannyasi should be careful not to step on any creature, to drink water filtered through his cloth, to speak only the purity of truth, and to perform only pure activities for the pleasure of Krishna. On the other hand, one is not a sannyasi or a renounced person unless one has or follows the 3 internal disciplines. That is to avoid useless speech, to avoid useless activities, to control the prana or life air, which is what is, that whole thing that they had with the 3 sticks of the bamboo. That's what that's all about. And you could get a better idea of that here. So what are the activities of a sannyasi? What does a sannyasi do? So their activities are about begging. That's how they get their food. They beg. They go from one house to another, right? And go to 7 houses of each of the 4 varnas. That is to say, the Brahmins, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. But they should only go to persons who earn their livelihood honestly and are free from sinful acts such as meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, gambling. And they should then accept whatever is given to them. And then having received that, they should bathe. Having received whatever food they got from these 7 houses, they should bathe, sit by a reservoir of water, distribute food to anyone who asks, and eat only all of the remnants, keeping nothing for the next day. That this is the practice of depending upon God as your maintainer. He will take care of me. I'm no longer the doer. I am no longer the person who is striving hard to make a living so that I can have a place to live and a food to eat. No, I've given up that whole idea. So a comment is made in the purport. This idea of begging is sometimes looked down upon in Western society. Those who oppose Vedic culture pass laws to make begging by saintly persons a criminal act. Thus they insult and persecute saintly beggars, considering them to be ordinary vagrants. A lazy person begging to avoid work is certainly abominable. But a saintly person dedicated to the service of the Supreme Lord and practicing the discipline of begging to develop full dependence on God's mercy should be given all facility in human society. You have to see where that person is coming from. If they're coming from the place of just being lazy, then no. But if they're coming from the place where they are practicing humility, they're practicing tolerance, austerity, they're practicing just depending on God, and whatever He gives them is what they will eat. If they get nothing, they eat nothing. If they get just a little bit, they eat that little bit. That's it. And they are happy with that. If they are not happy with that, then they are not a true sannyasi. There's a lovely poem or song, Vava Moj Fakiradi. The fakir, the renounced person, is blissful. Kadete khavan chela chavila, kadete khavan kheer ahirandi. Sometimes they are given lovely, wonderful, scrumptious, delicious foods to eat, and sometimes they're eating leftovers that have been thrown away on the street, or this, in the trash can even. Whatever they find, whatever is available, they all take that as the mercy of God. They're no longer hankering after anything of this world. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that there are three forms of collecting alms or begging. One is called madhukar, which is the process of imitating the bee. Collects a tiny amount of nectar from each flower. In this way, the saintly person accepts a very small amount from each person, avoiding social conflict. The other is asanklapta, which is what was described here in this verse, by which one indiscriminately approaches 7 houses, being satisfied with whatever may be obtained. The third is prak pranita, is that process by which one establishes regular donors and collects one's maintenance from them. This is not considered so ideal. Veera Raghava Acharya describes another form of sannyas. It is called the kutichak. This is called the initial stage of sannyas. So in this, one sort of moves into sannyas in a very gradual kind of way. One's children or other relatives and well-wishers build a little kuti or a meditation cottage in the forest, of course. One gives up worldly affairs, sits within the cottage, trying to remain free from desire, lust, anger, greed, illusion, and so on. One follows the rules of sannyas and accepts a tridanda, like we showed the stick, and a water pot, shaves his head, leaving a little tuft at the back, which is called the shikha, chants the Gayatri mantra on the sacred thread, and wears saffron garments, bathing regularly, cleansing, performing achaman, chanting japas, studying the Vedas, remaining celibate and meditating on the Supreme Lord. In this way, and such a person then receives regular supplies of food from his children, friend, and relatives. So this is sort of the, the easy way. Accepting only the bare necessities of life, he remains fixed in his cottage up to the moment of liberation. Now, what is a sannyasi supposed to do? We've talked about, his activities as far as how he eats and what he wears and stuff like that. And I say he because most of the time in Vedic culture, women did not go and take sannyas. A few women did, but mostly they did not. Mirabai, for example, is the famous person of someone who did take sannyas. There were other women as well, but it wasn't a general practice. Generally, women stayed behind and stayed with their children, but they did not try to control the household. They did not try to assert themselves into the affairs of the household of the children and how they ran their life. They did not try to be, trying to control the daughter-in-law, like, hey, you got to do things like this or that. No, they would be focused on their meditation. They'd be focused on their prayer, and whatever children gave them and however they took care of them, it was fine. So it is more easier for men to generally do these kind of austerities, more difficult, and in fact not even safe for a woman to be subjected to living in the forest like that, and especially in today's time where things are extremely unsafe, when you're not protected by the society around you. So what would the sannyasi do? Right? The sannyasi would travel. Their senses would be fully controlled. They would be in a state of equanimity. They would be very steady in their spiritual practices or sadhana, enthusiastic about life, and satisfied in themselves and in their realization of God. And with that, with these particular characteristics, they would travel the earth alone. Now, Srila Rupa Goswami in Upadesh Amrita talks about a very unique way that devotees of God need to focus on. So while these qualities are very important, but he gives some additional insight. He calls it in the Upadesh Amrita, Dadati pratigrinhati koyam akhyati prichati bhunkte bhojayate chaiva sad vidham priti lakshanam. So the signs of a truly detached or renounced person, the lakshana, symptoms, are that they are very loving, priti lakshanam. And what do they do? What is the detached, renounced person? This could actually even apply to a person who's in household life. It doesn't mean that you have to be a sannyasi to do these things. And there are 6 things he mentions, Rupa Goswami. He says that one who is truly renounced should give in charity and accept charitable gifts. One should reveal one's mind in confidence and inquire confidentially. One should accept foodstuffs, prasadam, that has been offered to God, and receive and give prasadam, foodstuffs offered to God. These are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. One who thus learns to associate, so now he's taking it to a different level. One who associates with the Supreme Lord Krishna's devotees actually remains insulated from the contamination of material life. By pure association with pure devotees, one gradually understands the name, form, qualities, associates, pastimes, and devotional service of Lord Sri Krishna. And thus, even in this lifetime, one can become a resident of the spiritual world. In the association of pure devotees, there is no material contamination and no useless discussion, since all pure devotees are fully engaged 24 hours a day in the loving service of the Supreme Lord. By the influence of such devotees, one develops equal vision, samadarshana, and sees the realized knowledge of Krishna consciousness everywhere. One becomes aware of God everywhere, of Krishna everywhere. Okay, what else does a sannyasi do? Look, you and I may or may not ever take sannyas, but you may come across a sannyasi and you may feel very impressed by this person and you may want to follow them. It is important that you know what are the qualities of a true sannyasi, of a truly renounced person. If you're going to seek their association, then how do you recognize a genuine, evolved person? Because that's what a sannyasi needs to be, a highly evolved person. Sometimes people take sannyas at a much younger age. They can take, at any age, in fact, take sannyas. However, the dangers are there. If you're young, you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, the danger is there of the senses overwhelming you. And thereby then you give up your sannyas, and that is not considered good at all. It has been described by some of the acharyas that giving up one's sannyas, sannyas is the final stage of life, so one should never give up sannyas. You can give up your student life, brahmachari, and get married. You can give up your household life and become a sannyasi, but you cannot give up your sannyas. That is meant to be the final stage. But some people have been known to fall down from their sannyas vows, that they're vows they need to take. And such persons have gone back into sex life and marriage and so on and so forth. And that has been described by our acharyas as being very despicable, almost like eating your own vomit is how they describe it. But basically the idea is that such activity is discouraged totally, completely. All right, so what is a sannyasi supposed to be doing? Yes, we're studying this so that we understand the qualities of a highly evolved person, just to be very, very clear. So, dwelling in a safe and solitary place, his mind purified by constant thought of me, the sage should concentrate on the soul alone, considering it to be none different than me. That is Krishna, that's the Supreme Lord. By steady knowledge, a sage should certainly ascertain the nature of the soul's bondage and liberation. See, when one contemplates these things, then one not only lives it, but one can show others how to live that way too. Bondage occurs when the senses are deviated to sense gratification, and complete control of the senses constitutes liberation. So this is a very powerful point here. We think we are free. We think we are in the land of the free. We all have this illusion of being free. We are not free. Show me one person who is free, free of their mind, free of their senses, free of their tongue, free of their eyes, free of their desire for sense gratification, free from anger, free from lust, free from greed, free from desire. Show me one person, and I will show you a saintly person. They do not exist. They are very rare, and it's a very special cultivation. To become free, that is moksha, that is liberation. And liberation is when you have complete control of the mind, the senses, the body. And anything less than that is bondage. So we are living in bondage, even though there may be no one external binding us down. And of course, we are bound by our family members and by our society and by our jobs and customers and people that we have to deal with and the police and everything else. We are bound always. We are not free. We work hard day and night, and then we are bound to pay our taxes. We are bound by the laws of the country. We are bound in every way. But to be free, that is what we're talking about. That is the point of sannyas. That is the point of all these processes that are meant to get us to the place where we are free. And when you are free, then you experience that true heaven on earth that people want. There's lots of other people who take drugs and think they're in some heaven on earth here, or they have some sensory pleasures and for a moment they feel very blissful, but it is only momentary. And then you have to get back to reality. Thus, completely controlling the five senses and the mind by Krishna consciousness, a sage having experienced spiritual bliss within the self should live detached from insignificant material sense gratification. One who is in the Vanaprastha, now we'll mention again of the Vanaprastha order of life, that in-between stage between the household life and sannyas. So one in the Vanaprastha order of life should always practice taking charity from others. For one is thereby freed from illusion and quickly becomes perfect in spiritual life. Indeed, one who subsists on food grains obtained in such a humble manner purifies his existence. This is a very important learning, that to live or sustain or maintain oneself by taking charity from others, then one becomes freed of the illusion. Which illusion? The illusion that I am the doer. The illusion that this is mine. I cooked this food. I bought this food. I worked for this food. I worked for this house. I worked for this shelter. I worked for my car. No, I am not the doer. I let go of that. I realize that God is the ultimate doer. He is doing everything and He is taking care of everyone. Even in the Bible it is said, you see the birds in the trees, they neither sow, neither do they reap into barns, Yet your heavenly Father provided for them. Are you not much better than they? So consider that. This message has been around way before, even in Vedic time, thousands of years before Christ. The same message, that if we depend on God for our sustenance, He will take care of us. And this is how we practice that. So in the purport it is said, this process is not theoretical, but actually purifies one's existence by forcing one to offer respect to all living beings. Unless one offers respect to others, one's begging will be fruitless. You can't be arrogant and be begging. It's not going to happen. Also, by begging, one will not often eat very sumptuously. This is good because when the tongue is controlled, the other senses are quickly pacified. Then Krishna continues, one should never see as ultimate reality those material things which obviously will perish. One should not see as ultimate reality those material things which obviously will perish. They are not ultimate reality. We're not saying that they're not reality. The world is real. Some people say Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, which means Brahman, the absolute truth, the energy of the divine, that is the reality, and everything else is false. It is illusion. While it is an illusion, it's a very realistic illusion. And in that realistic illusion, we all have to live. You go and stand in front of a car and it runs you over, you die. So it's not an illusion in that sense. It's not like you're in a computer world where things are going on, virtual reality, and you got shot, then you stand up and you get up, walk away. No, it's not like that. It is not mithya in that sense. It is not false or unreal in that sense. The world is real, but it is not the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality is God. Yes, His energy, yes. But behind that energy is the being, the person, God. So one should never see as ultimate reality those material things which obviously will perish. That includes the body, that includes your possessions, that includes the people that you're attached to. With consciousness free from material attachment, one should retire from all activities meant for material progress in this life and the next. One should logically consider the universe which is situated within the Supreme Lord, and one's own material body, which is composed of mind, speech, life, air, to be ultimately products of the Lord's illusory energy. Thus situated in the self, one should give up one's faith in these things and objects of the world and should never again make them the object of one's meditation. Here when people talk about manifesting and they think that's spirituality. Oh, yes, I will have whatever I desire. I will manifest whatever I desire. I'll just have to think about it. And it's a fact. You can, by your meditation, you can manifest things in this world. But please, my dear friend, think about, why are you manifesting this? Why are you wasting your meditation, your focus, your dhyana on useless things that are temporary and that will be lost in time? Why not use that same meditation power that you have to manifest the Supreme Being Himself? Why not manifest your ultimate welfare? Why not manifest your ultimate destination here and now? First know what it is, and then use the power of your manifestation to manifest God. Krishna continues, a learned transcendentalist dedicated to the cultivation of knowledge or jnana, and thus detached from external objects, or my devotee who is detached even from the desire for liberation. Because the jnani, the knowledgeable person who is very intellectually spiritual, often looks at liberation. But that too is a selfish act. That too is a way of getting free of suffering. And getting free of suffering is another selfish act. It's another form of sense gratification. I want a better situation for myself. It's the same thing. Whether you want a bigger house, or you want a bigger car, better car, or you want liberation. They're all the same category. Liberation is the same as salvation. That is the same as nirvana. That is the same as moksha. Whatever name you want to give it, it's the same thing. And all of it is sense gratification. So my devotee who is detached even from the desire for liberation neglects those duties that are based on external rituals or paraphernalia. Thus, their conduct is beyond the range of rules and regulations. In the purport, it is said this verse describes the Paramhamsa. Paramhamsa means the most advanced stage of life, in which there is no further need for rituals or external paraphernalia or rules and regulations. A completely realized Gyan yogi pursuing liberation, or beyond that, a perfect devotee of the Supreme Lord who does not desire even liberation, has no further desire for material engagement. When one completely purifies the mind, there is no possibility of sinful behavior. Rules and regulations are meant for guiding those who have a tendency to act in ignorance or for personal gratification. But one who is perfect in spiritual consciousness can move freely, as described here by Krishna. Example is given, one who tends to drive a car recklessly or who is unfamiliar with the local road conditions certainly needs the discipline of elaborate road signs and police enforcement of traffic laws. A perfectly safe driver, however, is thoroughly familiar with the local road conditions. He has no real need for the enforcement officials or the speed limits and caution signs meant for those unfamiliar with the road. You get it? Krishna continues, although most wise, the Paramhamsa, the most highly evolved person, should enjoy life like a child. This is that childlike enjoyment of life. Now you're free, and even you're free, you can enjoy life like a child. Be oblivious to honor and dishonor. And although this person is most expert, he should behave like a stunted, incompetent person. Although most learned, he should speak like an insane person. And although a scholar learned in Vedic regulations, he should behave in an unrestricted manner. Why? Because you've reached the highest level of attainment. It is very easy at that stage to become proud and to become arrogant and to see yourself as better than. And that pride shall precede a fall, my dear. It is very important then to cultivate humility. The more you rise spiritually, the more important humility becomes. The more important it becomes to consider yourself as nothing. Therefore, he's saying here, you should almost act like an insane person. As you're evolving, don't try to show off your learnedness. Behave, like he says, like a stunted, incompetent person. I don't know how to do anything. Let people think they can do things for you. That's fine. So the purport, it is said, a Paramhamsa sannyasi, the most highly evolved sannyasi, fearing that his mind may be deviated by the tremendous prestige that people sometimes offer to a perfectly self-realized person, such a person conceals his position as described in this verse. A self-realized person does not try to please the mass of people, nor does he desire social prestige, since the mission of his life is to remain detached from the material world and to always please the Supreme Lord. The devotee should never, Krishna continues, the devotee should never engage in the karmic rituals mentioned in the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, nor should he become atheistic, acting or speaking in opposition to the Vedic injunctions. Similarly, he should never speak like a mere logician or skeptic, or take any side whatsoever in useless arguments. A saintly person should never let others frighten or disturb him, and similarly should never frighten or disturb other people. He should tolerate the insults of others and should never himself belittle anyone. So important. Tolerate the insults of others and never belittle anyone. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu calls this amanina manadena. To want no man, no respect for oneself, but manadena, to give respect to others. This is the code of conduct of a person who is highly evolved. Whereas the average person says, no, you treated me badly, I will treat you badly too. Or I will cut off from you, or I will have nothing to do with you. You are toxic, you are unhealthy to be around, I don't want anything to do with you. That is not the way of spiritual evolution. The way of spiritual evolution is given very clearly. He should tolerate the insults of others and should never himself belittle anyone. He should never create hostility with anyone for the sake of the material body, for he would thus be no better than an animal. Meaning someone who starts, because someone's trying to say something, you're looking so ugly today, you're looking so bad, or is maybe even attacking your physical body. I know this is hard for women to do, but for men, even if someone is pushing you around, trying to agitate you, trying to take advantage of you, it is better to be in a state of humility. Should never create hostility with anyone for the sake of the material body, for thus he would be no better than an animal. The one Supreme Lord is situated within all material bodies and within everyone's soul. So God is seated inside everyone. Krishna says, I am seated in everyone's heart. Everyone's heart. Along with the soul is the super soul, is the Paramatma. God, Krishna, is seated within everyone's heart, along with the soul. And he is the witness. He is the Sakshi, witnessing our life, witnessing our experience, accompanying us, being our best friend. So the one Supreme Lord, he says here, is situated within all material bodies and within every soul. So when you can see that in everyone, oh, God is within everyone, within this animal, within this person who even is doing crazy things. Maybe is insulting me. Maybe he is saying horrible things. Maybe he is cheating me even. It's okay. God is seated in his heart. God is witnessing what he is doing. He will get his own karma. I don't need to do anything. The one Supreme Lord is situated within all material bodies and within everyone's soul. Just as the moon is reflected in innumerable reservoirs of water, the Supreme Lord, although one, is present within everyone. Thus, every material body is ultimately composed of the energy of the one Supreme Lord. Means not only is the stuff of which our body is made from the energy of God, but he is also seated within it. Both things are there. So there is in fact nothing but God all around us. And if there is good things happening, that is also from God. And if there are bad things happening, that is also from God. Our job is to go beyond the duality of good and bad, beyond good and evil, to go beyond I like this and I don't like this. That I agree with you, I disagree. To go beyond that, that is to come to the place of non-duality. And when you are in that place of non-duality, then you begin to experience that divine presence within everyone, within everything, within yourself. And then you realize God is everywhere. He is within everything, within every atom, within every person, within every being. Within the smallest of the small creatures, from the ants to the mosquito. And although it's hard for us to tolerate some of these creatures, yet he is there. Krishna continues, if at times one does not obtain proper food, one should not be depressed. And when one obtains sumptuous food, one should not rejoice. Being fixed in determination, one should understand both situations to be under the control of God. So when he says the control of God, does it mean God controls everything? He's like this puppet master who's controlling everything in the world? No. When he's saying under the control of God, it means there is this energy of God that is in charge of everything. And everything is happening in such a way, whether you like it or you dislike it, whether you agree or you disagree, everything is happening in such a way that will ultimately move us closer to God. You see, good and bad is a product of the mind. The mind thinks in dualistic terms. It thinks in terms of positive and negative. But to rise beyond that is where we can enter into that sacred spiritual space of non-duality. And it is only there that you find God. It is not that you find God while you're in duality. It's not just that when nice things are happening, oh yes, God gave me this. Oh yeah. And the bad things? Or some people think only the bad things come from God and only the good things I did it myself. That is again our pride and our arrogance and our ego. So if required, one should endeavor to get sufficient foodstuffs because it is always necessary to maintain one's health. So now he's going a little different way. if you need to get, you got to maintain your body and mind and body and soul together. When the senses, mind, and life air are fit, one can contemplate spiritual truth, and by understanding the truth, one is liberated. So the purport then says, if foodstuffs do not come automatically or by token begging, then one should endeavor to keep body and soul together so that one's spiritual program will not be diminished. Normally, those who are endeavoring in spiritual life cannot maintain steady concentration on the truth if their mind and body are weakened by overeating or undereating. On the other hand, extravagant consumption of food is a great impediment for spiritual advancement and should be given up. Krishna continues, a sage should accept the food, clothing, and bedding, be they of excellent or inferior quality, whatever comes of its own accord. Just as I, the Supreme Lord, execute regulative duties by my own free will, similarly one who has realized knowledge of me should maintain general cleanliness, purify his hands with water, take bath, and execute other regulative duties not by force, but by his own free will. So he's basically saying, look, everyone has to live, everyone has to do some basic things. And even I, Krishna, when I descend into this world, I form the same Vedic regulations and things that need to be done just to set the example. And if I can do it, you can do it. Right? So one who has realized knowledge of me should maintain, even though you're even at the highest level of the Paramhamsa, the highest level of the most evolved person, even though that person needs to not do anything, they're beyond rules, they are beyond all the regulations, yet they should maintain general cleanliness, purify their hands, take a bath, execute other regulative duties, not because they have to, but because that's a way of setting the example for everyone else. A realized soul, a self-realized person, right? God-realized person no longer sees anything as separate from me, from Krishna. For his realized knowledge of me has destroyed such illusory perception. So what is the illusory perception that we live in? Oh, everything is separate. I am separate from you. You are separate from the other person. The God is separate from all of us. And in some sense, we are separate, but we are also not. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called it, we are inconceivably, simultaneously one with and different from each other and God. We are one with each other. We are one, and yet we are different. This is the most amazing part of the philosophy. A lot of people say, no, we're all one. I am you and you're me. But hey, if I'm you and you're me, then why is it that I don't have the keys to your bank balance and your account? And why is it that I don't own everything you own and you own everything I own? And come on, let's be real here, right? So it's very nice to say we're all one. Every one of us is just one. It's just a matter of perception. We're not able to see that. No, we are not, and we are. There is a part of us that is the same. That is the spiritual essence of what we are. That part is no different in me and in you and in everyone and in everything. And yet, we are unique pieces of the one. We are unique particles of the one. That one is that supreme being, that supreme Lord. And it is because of that, because then only can we have love. Only then can we have relationship. If I'm the same as you, then what's the need of any relationship? If I am the same as everyone, then why do I need anyone? If I am the same as God, then why do I worship God? But I'm not the same as God. Some people go around saying, oh, I'm God, you're God, we're all God. Really? If you're God, can you please kindly manifest a blade of grass for me? You can't. Or I don't know, a spider, a fly, a mosquito, anything, any little thing. A drop of milk, just manifest it out of nowhere. Can't. Then what kind of God are you? This is all just talk, and talk is cheap. Since the material body, Krishna is speaking here, since the material body and mind were previously accustomed to this kind of perception that thinking in terms of the illusory world as being for our enjoyment, So since the material body and mind were previously accustomed to this kind of perception, it may sometimes appear to recur, and at the time of death, the self-realized soul achieves opulences equal to mine. So Krishna is saying that one who is self-realized ultimately gains opulences that are none different than the Supreme Lord himself. One becomes very godly, godlike, and especially when is out of this material body, those qualities become very, very clearly manifest. Krishna continues, one who is detached from sense gratification, knowing its result to be miserable, and who desires spiritual perfection, but who has not seriously analyzed the process for obtaining me, should approach a bona fide and learned spiritual master. By the way, if any of you are listening have any questions, please feel free to ask. I will be taking up all questions in just a few minutes. Please feel free to ask your questions. If you're welcome to not agree, you're welcome to discuss, debate, argue, doesn't matter, it's fine. It's all welcome. So he says that if you're not able to understand these things and you still, you want spiritual perfection, but you're not able to get detached from sense gratification, or you're not able to understand why the results of sense gratification cause misery, right? Or of desire cause misery, then it is best that you approach a bona fide and learned spiritual master. Until a devotee has clearly realized spiritual knowledge, he should continue with great faith and respect and without envy to render personal service to the Guru, who is none different from me. Krishna says the Guru is none different than himself, because that person has removed all separateness, no longer thinks in terms of what they personally want. They have no personal desire. Their only desire is, how can I serve Krishna? How can I serve that most darling of all, that most wonderful being of all? How can I serve that source of all beauty and all love? So that person who has no other desire than to please Sri Krishna is none different than Krishna. That doesn't mean he is Krishna, it doesn't mean he is God, but he is none different. Like Christ would say, I and the Father are one. This oneness does not mean sameness. People mistake that. They think, oh, Christ said I and the Father are one. That means that he is God. No, he's not. He never said that. He said, oh Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. People want to twist things around. That's unfortunate. So here he's saying, the Guru is none different from me. The Guru and I are one. That's what he's saying. Same thing that Christ said, and this was said thousands of years before. Krishna continues, one who has not controlled the 6 forms of illusion, lust, anger, greed, false pride, intoxication, and excitement. So one who has not controlled the 6 forms, these are the 6 forms of illusion, our desire, our lust, our anger, our greed, our excitement, our false pride and intoxication, whose intelligence, which has become the leader of their senses, whose this intelligence is leading their senses how to fulfill, and it's just trying to fulfill the needs of the senses, and which are very attached to material things. The person who is, number one, who has not controlled the 6 forms of illusion, whose intelligence is attached to material things, who is bereft of knowledge and detachment, who adopts the sannyas order of life or renunciation to make a living, who denies the worshipable demigods and his own self and the Supreme Lord within himself, thus ruining all dharma, and who is still infected by material contamination, is deviated and lost both in this life and the next. So what he's talking about here are basically cheaters. And in the purport it said, Krishna here condemns bogus personalities who adopt the sannyas. Sannyasis are the renunciates, right, who wear the saffron cloth. So he's condemning such personalities who adopt the sannyas order of life just to enjoy their senses. So they kind of fake it, and they attract followers. A false show of sannyas is never accepted by intelligent followers of Vedic principles. So why indeed are we reading all this? Just to repeat that point, and that is so that we understand what are the qualities of a highly evolved person, so we don't get fooled. Because there are many cheaters out there. There are many people who pretend. And just because they have many followers means nothing. And just because they might have incorporated teachings from various places and dish it out in a very eloquent and wonderful way, maybe because they have a great smile or maybe because they're very charismatic, doesn't mean a damn thing. What matters are the qualities that are being talked about here, that that person has overcome the 6 forms of illusion: lust, anger, greed, excitement, false pride, and the madness that arises from in trying to enjoy the senses or desires. So the person who does not have proper knowledge and detachment, who has adopted the sannyas order of life just to make a comfortable and cushy living. So that kind of person we must recognize and not follow. The qualities are being given here because this was stated thousands of years ago to guide us. And that's why it's very important to understand, because it's so important to find someone who is highly evolved, because such a person is an inspiration to us all. But such a person can also be faked and mimicked. I've seen it plenty of times. The main qualities of a sannyasi are equanimity and non-violence. If we want to kind of boil it down, equanimity and non-violence. These would be the 2 main qualities of a sannyasi. And a Vanaprastha who is attempting to take sannyas, their main qualities are austerity and gyan. Gyan means knowledge. The grihastha, the householder, the family person, must give shelter to all entities, all living beings. Give shelter to them and perform yajna, sacrifices. And the brahmachari, the student, their life is dedicated in service to the guru. So the main a householder may approach his wife for sex only at the time prescribed for begetting children. And now you may say, I used to struggle with this one, like, oh no, household life is just for having, just begetting children, and one is not supposed to have sex otherwise. And this sounded really harsh and terrible because according to the society I grew up in, and probably you too, we think, oh, well, we're with a partner now. It's, it's about enjoying ourselves, enjoying our senses, enjoying sex, enjoying pleasure. And the Vedic culture says no. The householder should practice celibacy, austerity, cleanliness of mind and body, satisfaction in his natural position, and friendship towards all living entities. Why? Because you're practicing detachment from the world. You're practicing detachment from that which is false, from the illusions of the world, even as a householder. The goal of household life or family life is not enjoyment, is not having fun, is not having pleasure, is being able to bring your family together as a team, as a unit, to engage in spiritual practice and being able to come closer and closer to that Supreme Lord. So what happens is, with sensual pleasures and enjoyment, one moves further and further away from their spirituality. Some people believe, oh no, we can spiritualize our sensual pleasures. We can turn our sexuality into a meditation. And while there is some truth, I've looked into that, no, it creates another level of illusion. I'd be happy to have that discussion with anyone who'd like to. But the truth is that all it does is it creates a certain addiction. The world is very, very tricky. It produces its own level of addiction to itself. All pleasures, all enjoyment lead to the same destination, that we become attached to the world. We become attached to another person, to another body, to our senses, to our mind. And that is what we need to overcome, because I'm not my body. I'm not my mind. I'm not my senses. I'm not the stuff of this world. And if I want to really come to the place where I can open myself to that experience, then I need to be able to let go something that is of an inferior nature to achieve a higher nature. Only by letting go the inferior nature are we able to elevate ourselves to the higher nature. Worship of me, that is Krishna, is to be practiced by all human beings, regardless of social or occupational divisions. All right, I think we'll move forward. Krishna then says, one who worships me by his prescribed duty, so that is, you have your own dharma, your own duty that you perform, your work, should be done as an offering to Krishna, he says in Bhagavad Gita. One who worships me by his prescribed duty, having no other object of worship, and who remains conscious of me as present in all living entities, achieves unflinching, unwavering devotion to me. My dear Uddhava, I am Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, the Supreme Lord of all worlds. This is stated here, and it is stated many, many, many times in the Bhagavad Gita, and it is stated right throughout the through the Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna says, I am Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. Sarva means all, Loka means planets, all the planets of the universe. Maha Ishwaram, I am the great controller, Ishwara, of all the worlds, the Supreme Lord of all the worlds. This is a claim you will not find in any other teacher, any other spiritual path, or any other scripture, or any other place. But you will find it again and again and again when it refers to Krishna. And it's not spoken by him. He says it. Great saintly persons say it, and they've been saying it for thousands of years. So I am Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, the Supreme Lord of all worlds, and Sarva Utpatti, the cause of the creation of everything. I create and destroy this universe, being its ultimate cause. I am thus the absolute truth, and one who worships me with unflinching devotion comes to me. Thus one who has purified his existence by execution of his prescribed duties and who fully understands my supreme position and who is endowed with scriptural and realized knowledge very soon achieves me. Those who are followers of this Varnashram system accept Dharma according to authorized traditions of proper conduct. When such Varnashram duties are dedicated to me in loving service, they award the supreme perfection of life. My dear saintly Uddhava, I have now described to you, just as you inquired, the means by which my devotee, perfectly engaged in his swadharma, prescribed duty, can come back to me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All right. Do any of you have any questions? I see many of you on Instagram, some people on YouTube. If you have any questions, please ask them. You haven't asked now, so, please ask them now. And if you're not able to think of anything right now, all my videos are on YouTube. You can look for my channel there and just put my name in there, Rohit Juneja, and you'll find me at Rohit Juneja. And if you're there, you'll find playlists. And this is all under the Divine Love playlist. So feel free to ask your questions there or here now if you like. And I'll be glad to answer them at any time. All right. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your presence. Thank you so much for supporting me. And I'll see you next Tuesday at the same time. I usually start at 8 p.m. Eastern, which is 5 p.m. Pacific. See you next week. Hare Krishna.